And welcome to Arts in Review. This is your host, Julio Martinez, celebrating the best in live theater and cabaret in the greater Los Angeles area. Today we're going to be celebrating a world premiere play, and I'll have the complete cast here in studio. It happens to be a one-person play, but that's all right. And it's written by an old friend, Theresa Chavez, whose family dates back to the early 19th century in Los Angeles. So please stay tuned to Arts in Review. And as I said, this is your host, Julio Martinez. We do celebrate live theater here in Los Angeles, and there is so much of it. In fact, there's more live theater in L.A. than there is in New York and Philadelphia combined, and that's a little-known fact. Anyway, today I'm celebrating a play called L.A. Real. It's a world premiere. In fact, it's a solo performance piece starring Marlene Beltran, who's a first-generation Mexicana, and it's written by Theresa Chavez, whose family dates back 8 generations here in Los Angeles. It's going to open April 1st at Plaza de la Raza's Margot Albert Theater at 2023. Plaza de la Raza Margot Albert Theater in Lincoln Heights, which is 1340 North Mission Road, LA, California 90031. It previews for 2 nights, then it opens April 1st, and then it runs through April 8th. And the tickets are available at aboutpr.org, abotpd.org. Now, I'm a little bit out of a dilemma here. I am your host. I celebrate live theater here in LA, and I've been informed by my producer, who does it with sign language, that my guests are about to come in. At least one guest, Theresa Chavez. So I can talk a little bit about Theresa. She wrote and directed this work, and her family dates back to the early 19th century. She's written numerous works that investigate the Mexican experience in Los Angeles in particular, but the Los Angeles experience in California. And way back in the early 2000s, I worked with Theresa and her production company I was their publicist. So I got to see some of her works up close. I know the passion she exudes in doing these. And so I'm really happy. I think she had a bit of a hiatus during the COVID crisis, but she's back into productions. It's called About Productions, and it creates original interdisciplinary theater works and educational programs that provoke some new perspectives on history, humanity, and culture. The company is dedicated to generating new work through collaboration to create artistic and community dialogue, and believes in the power of theater to enlighten audiences, transform youth, and celebrate the lives of their elders. And as I said, you can get tickets at About PD Productions. That's aboutpd.org. And at some time during the program, they're offering free tickets to KPFK members to one of their 2 preview performances on March 30th and 31st. So, without much more delay, I'm about to introduce Theresa Chavez, and here she comes now. Well, greetings, Theresa. It's good to see you here. Grab a microphone. It's been a while.
I know, it's been a while. How are you?
I'm fine. Get up closer to the mic so our audience can hear you as well.
It's great to be here, Julio. Thank you so much. I think there was a little misunderstanding with the time. So I'm here, and Marlene Beltran is on her way.
Good. Get the microphone a little bit closer to you.
Okay.
All right. Now, I remember you all the way to, they shoot Mexicans, don't they?
Yeah, at least. Our company's in its 34th year.
And you have been moving along. I haven't seen about productions in a few years. Did you take a hiatus?
Well, we premiered Adobe Punk last spring at Plaza de la Raza. That, of course, was postponed because of the pandemic. It was supposed to premiere in 21. Then, right before the pandemic, we did 2 revised versions of Evangeline, the Queen of Make-Believe.
Oh, I remember that.
Yeah. And we premiered that in 2012, but we did a revised, remounted version. And that's the piece that has the Los Lobos songbook set in 1968.
Yes. I remember it when Kiki starred in it.
Yes, that's right. That was when we were doing the work in progress.
Right,
version.
I remember that.
That was in 2010, I think.
Yes, I date way back with you.
Yes, you do. That's great. Thank you.
So, L.A. Real.
Yes.
You're again delving into your family history a bit.
Yes.
So, can you give me an idea what it's about?
Well, it's a solo performance piece in which a Latina / mestiza narrator is exploring her ancestral history. And she's doing it from a contemporary point of view. She dives deep into her history and is trying to figure out how she should embrace it on a personal, political, and cultural level. And it's a piece that combines video, vintage photography, original music by Cesar Castro Jarochelo, and Marlene Beltran plays the mestiza narrator, and it also includes painting.
Wow.
Yeah.
This is a lot of varieties.
Yes, it's what we like to call an interdisciplinary theater work.
And you staged this as a solo performance, so that puts a lot of emphasis on your performer.
Yes, it is a heavy lift for her. She's on stage the whole time. The one brief moment she's off stage when Marco Rodriguez, I don't know if you know Marco, he's a pretty well-known film and television actor you may have seen last in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, the film. He's a character actor that you see all the time, but he's also a wonderful theater actor. And in the piece, there are 3 homages to the Twilight Zone.
I hear that, yes.
Yes, and so Marco plays the Rodolfo Serling character.
Uh-huh.
So he's Rodolfo, but he only appears in video. And the mestiza narrator who is joining us right now, Marlene Beltran, she interacts with the video, and he's, in a sense, exploring the science fact of early California history.
Wow.
Yeah, there's a lot going on.
Welcome, Marlene Beltran.
Thank you for having me.
You're new to me. What is your background?
Well, I was born and raised here in Whittier, California. I'm first generation Chicana. My parents are both Mexican immigrants. My parents are Margarito and Magdalena Beltran. And yeah, in terms of my background, I recently told my parents I was born an artist and I'll die an artist. And so that's what you really need to know about me.
So, I was talking to Theresa. You're on stage alone.
Yes. But I don't feel alone because, the play is really about Theresa's family. And so part of the process and really some of the themes of the play is about that ancestral connection. And so, I feel the presence of the ancestors there, as well as the ancestors that I bring with me when everywhere I go. And so I am physically, I am alone on stage, but energetically I feel supported.
So part of the dilemma that your character faces is how to connect with all this. Mm-hmm. The past, the present, which is constantly shifting.
Correct.
And I'm really interested in seeing this, how you work it out.
Great. Yes.
I'm not sure what the rehearsal process was. This is a world premiere play.
Well, no, it's not a world premiere. This is a revised and reimagined piece. So it actually premiered. Part of the reason we're remounting it is because it's the 30th anniversary of the solo and the ensemble versions of the piece. But it's being reimagined, and one of the major aspects of this new work is that it has a number of songs in the piece. In the prior versions, there was no live music. There was, in a sense, instrumental underscoring. But because Marlene has an incredible singing and musical background, and because I've taken to writing songs, which I did,
Hooray.
I did early in my career, and then set it aside and have come back to it. I wanted to integrate these songs that Marlene can talk about as well, but they're basically called Fantasma Fotografica. That is the name of the song. It refers to photographic ghosts. And the character, the mestiza narrator, is trying to connect to the photographic ghosts in her world because she has lived in her. She's an 8th generation Californio, the mestiza narrator, which is reflective of my family, and so she has in a sense a scrapbook, let's say, of photographs that date back to the early, as soon as photography was an entity, you start having photos of this family in the LA area.
Now, during the rehearsal, did you have to be a bit of a history teacher for Marlene?
A bit. I mean, Marlene is a very astute Chicana historian, I would say,
okay.
in an artistic way.
Yes.
And so she, I would say, is probably more aware of the Mexican, Mexicana history of LA. Most people are not that aware of the California history. In fact, in one aspect of the piece, she's trying to decide what she should call herself. Should she call herself a Californiana? Does it matter? Does anyone care? Does anyone know what that means? What does that mean to her? And to answer your question, we did spend a fair amount of time looking at the history, looking at the photographs, as I mentioned.
You have some wonderful photos.
Yes, and we have a really wonderful projection designer, Lee Eisenstein, who is reimagining these beautiful vintage photographs. So we also have a history guide that everyone who comes to the show is going to receive. And that history guide will give people what we feel is the important backstory, the important history that's not necessarily in the piece. It's referred to in the piece. It's not, I would say it's more of a poetic approach to her dilemma. There is a fair amount of telling the story of the family, but there's also a lot of poetry in it via the songs, via the approach to the piece is theatrically poetic, I would say.
And Marlene, you sing.
Yes. I do sing, and I'm happy to talk about that. But there is a lot of history, and because the question was about the rehearsal process, and I do feel a deep responsibility to make sure that I'm getting the facts straight, because there is a lot of dates, a lot of places, people, and so. As Theresa mentioned, a significant chunk of time was spent talking about these things. But I, as the person charged to tell this story, definitely feel a responsibility to get the information correct historically, and all the other parts in terms of the poetry and the emotion of the storytelling. For me, comes a lot more naturally, and getting all those dates has been homework every day.
What is your costume like? Do you change costumes?
There is yes, let me talk. So the costumes are being designed by a wonderful artist named Jeanette Godoy. And I do have a couple of different costume pieces that I wear. I don't want to give away too much because I do want you to come and see it. But they definitely will be highlighting both the Californiana aesthetic as well as an indigenous aesthetic in the costume pieces.
Now, I was looking at the release, and there's something in here that intrigues me. Following the solo performance piece featuring, do you pronounce it Marlene or Marlene?
Marlene.
Marlene, all right. Beltran, selected student monologues written by local youth through the Art of the Monologue workshops will be presented. Does that happen after each performance?
Yes, every performance except the Sunday matinee. We only have one Sunday matinee because it's just a 2-week run. On that Sunday matinee, we're having a panel which is called Archiving LA Latinx Theater. But all the evening shows have the student monologues that are being read that were, as you said, I believe, developed in the Art of the Monologue workshops that Marlene was overseeing at 3 different public high schools in LAUSD and PUSD, Pasadena Unified.
And you have all these high school students exploring their own self-identity.
Correct. And they're exploring or being inspired by LA Real. They explored or were introduced to some of the monologues, but their monologues are really their own. The workshop is an effort to have them really dig deep into their own personal point of view. And they're different. Marlene can talk more about them because she's started being introduced to them and reading them and working with them.
Yes, I actually got to see...
Can
you get a little closer to the microphone?
Yes.
There you are.
You can hear it. Can you hear me now?
Yes, I can hear you now.
Great. Was fortunate enough to see some of the student monologues read by the students, some of which will be presenting at a student matinee performance that we'll be doing just for them next week. And they've really been writing some very moving work. We have some amazing teaching artists working with them, and they're exploring ideas of identity as well as their family relationships that they have and the impact that those relationships have had on them. But mostly they're exploring their own voice and learning how to share that voice and exploring what that means to them.
Now, the name of this play is L.A. Real. It's at the Margot Albert Theater, which is located in Plaza de la Raza in Lincoln Heights. Now, you have 2 preview performances.
Yes.
The 30th and 31st. And we've been informed that you're willing to give some tickets away to KPFK members.
Yes.
If you're a member of KPFK, we would love to offer free tickets in pairs. So if you're calling for a pair of tickets to either the March 30th, which I believe is a Thursday, and March 31st, a Friday. Then it opens for real on April 1st.
Correct.
So all you have to do is call 818-985-5735. Call 818-985-5735. And I believe we have a little bit of background music from your show.
Yes.
And so call now, 818-985-5735. This is your host again, Julio Martinez. That is a piece of, tell me who the guitarist again is?
Cesar Castro.
And he recorded this purely for this production, right?
Yes, he wrote all the music. He wrote all the music for the songs that Marlene and Cesar and I co-wrote. So we collaborated on the creation of these three songs that are in the piece. But all the instrumental music that is underscoring the text is written by him as well.
That's beautiful. Thank you.
Yeah.
And by the way, this ticket giveaway goes through the length of our show. So please call 818-985-5735, 818-985-KPFK. And you can get a pair of tickets if you're a KPFK member. We encourage you to keep listening. So, this is a short run of the play.
Yes, it is shorter than what we normally do.
Do you have future plans for it?
Yeah, we're hoping that we're going to be able to share it with other audiences, perhaps in other cities. We're just beginning to work on that outreach for that. We don't have a specific date except for I'm trying to remember the name of. There's a festival that's happening in September that we've been invited to at a place called Home, which is in I think it's in South Central Los Angeles, and it's a wonderful youth organization that has a pretty, I believe, new theater, and they're teaching youth how to fulfill the jobs of running a theater, both on stage and off stage and backstage.
Wow.
Yeah, and they actually run this festival. It's a new festival, and they mostly have been asking Latino-focused, Latinx-focused theater companies to come and be part of the festival. I think it was supposed to start in 2020. And then they had to, go hybrid, online and hybrid. And so this will be the first year they're actually going to do the festival in person.
Wow, that sounds great.
Yeah. Yeah. And that'll be, it's one weekend in mid-September.
Now, for About Productions, do you have other productions coming up?
We do have Adobe Punk, which I mentioned earlier. Right. What we're doing with it this coming year is doing the concert version of it. Adobe Punk has a live punk band in it. The story revolves around these three young Bell Gardens punk musicians. They're becoming punk musicians, becoming artists and creators, and they are squatting in a house that they don't realize is a historic adobe in Bell Gardens. And so it's a piece it's not a musical, but it has a fair amount of live music. And so what we're going to do next year, at the Frida Kahlo Theater is do a concert version of it. So just presenting the music with some scenes interspersed around the music. And then in 2025, which sounds crazy, we're going to remount the whole piece again.
Wow. Marlene Beltran, do you have, actually calling you Marlene. Marlene, do you have plans after this?
I do have plans after this. I'm actually going to be directing a play by Virginia Grice called Blue in collaborations with a theater company called Two Rhythms. And that should be going up in June. So I'm really looking forward to working on that piece just because it is set in Los Angeles and it centers around a queer family. And so I'm really looking forward to digging into that story.
Well, a half hour goes by very fast, but I want to say this once again. This is About Productions' presentation of El Real, a solo performance piece opening on Saturday, April 1st at Plaza de la Raza's Margot Albert Theater at Lincoln Heights, which is in 1340 North Mission Road, LA.
3540.
Yes, right, 3540. Yes. Excuse my near eyesight. 3540. That would be across the street. 3540.
North Mission Road,
LA 90031. And the performances opening is Saturday, April 1st, 2023, and you can get tickets at aboutpd.org, aboutpd.org. And the phone's been ringing, so we have people interested in coming to see your show.
Thank you.
Well, it's been many years, Theresa.
I know. It's been a while since I've seen you.
Yes. And it's nice meeting you for the first time, Marlene.
Nice to meet you as well.
Thank you for having us.